CM Punk is back in the news. so this is how our day starts. And I'm going to keep this vague because I don't want to get anybody into trouble. But for the AEW Collision announcement happens yesterday morning, Wednesday morning, and CM Punk is left off of the poster. But we had been told up to this point that this was the CM Punk show. Like, they're making this show for him. They're going to have a roster split, and it's going to be CM Punk show. There's even some rumors that he might be booking it, yada, 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 whatever. Okay, so anyway, the announcement happens at the Warner Brothers Discovery upfronts. They get the poster, and boom, no CM Punk. We get the announcement, no CM Punk in the announcement. We get Andrade, we got Miro, we got Thunder Rosa. Basically, all of the assholes are supposed to be on Collision. FTR, Will Hobbs, not an asshole. Everybody likes Will Hobbs, but he's going to be with that crew on Collision, right? And so we're like, well, what the hell? What's going on with CM Punk? So then we just start talking, and we're like, oh, well, maybe they're just waiting to have the announcement on Dynamite because they still have the big announcement to come on Dynamite. Tony Khan had teased it the week before. Like, okay, well, that makes sense. And then all of a sudden, we start hearing, JD, you and I are talking, and we have some friends, and one of our friends is saying, hey, man, I think Ace Steele's back. And then we had another friend said, hey, I think Ace Steele's back. And then next thing you know, Sean Ross Sapp comes out with a report that they tried to get Ace Steele back. And then now rumors start flying after that CM Punk bounced because Ace Steele couldn't be in. So there was a portion of the day where we thought Punk was out, right? We think this guy is gone. And then all of a sudden, we hear it comes out, no, CM Punk's still back in. So Fightful saying CM Punk's still back in at this point. And that's what everybody right now, I believe, is they're believing. Well, we get to Dynamite, and we're expecting maybe we'll get the CM Punk announcement, and then Tony Khan comes on the TV, and his big announcement is that next week he has a big announcement. And then he just ends up announcing some dates that were already on the calendar that everybody fucking knew about already. So we were watching this guy, and you could tell he was not excited this week as he was last week whenever he was talking about what he's going to talk about this week. So we get to that. CM Punk has been left off. You and I at one point were like, nope, he's completely out. And then we're like, nope, he's completely back in. And then Ace Steele, apparently this is from Nick Hausman, dipshit. He said that that Ace Steele's been back for months. And then he's just been working remotely. And then the issue is bringing that guy back to TV. So JD, let's talk about this, man. What were your thoughts about yesterday and how crazy it was?
It was crazy. I remember I tweeted out, I wasn't being I wasn't trying to be mysterious, but I tweeted out a gif of Al Capone's vault with Geraldo because I was like, well, that's a whole lot of nothing. Right now, it was before noon. Because again, we thought there was going to be a TV deal announced. We thought there was going to be a Max thing. And Brian fucking Alvarez was right. He wasn't right about the money, but he's like, it's just going to be the new show. And I'm like, oh, man. I just knew it. The second he said something, I'm like, man, that's what's going to happen.
And people are shitting on our video from last week, by the way. I got to eat shit on that one. But
one guy. Hey, it could be. They didn't announce anything. Nothing has been announced.
Yeah. We're not done yet.
No, we're going to be right in the long run because we always are.
Eventually.
No, I mean, so we were expecting a lot, and we didn't get a lot. We got the show that we knew we were going to get. Now, to be fair, it sounds like Punk and Tony had a little bit of a kerfluffle over the legal, right? And Punk was probably just got a little Punk pissed.
Yeah.
And we know some people who have some Punk ties, and they were like, no, Punk will be back. He'll be back in. It'll be fine. But it sounds like Tony went, maybe he won't be fine. But then again, is it beyond Tony Punk to say, I have an announcement that next week I'm going to have an announcement? That's not beyond him, to be quite honest with you, to do something like that.
No, because he loves that announcement hook. And unfortunately for him, the announcement hook has diminishing returns at this point.
You can't do Vanderpump finale. You weren't beating that last night. Did you see the rate and the NBA last? Did you see the ratings? That was crazy.
Wild.
You weren't beating that. I don't even know what a Vanderpump is.
Never in my life will I ever watch that. Yeah.
No, but I mean, it killed everything last night. So maybe it was best up to just kind of hold off. And quite frankly, an announcement about the first Collision being in the city of Chicago deserves its own announcement, not to be lumped in with all that, Canada crap.
Yeah.
Who cares about Canada? You want Chicago, a real city, in real country to have its own announcement focused just on that. Fuck Canada, who cares?
Yeah, and BJ Bethel's in the waiting room. BJ, we're gonna get you on here in a couple minutes because I want you to weigh in on this stuff. So the one thing about this that I just found interesting is that on Tuesday, both Keller and Meltzer were talking about Wednesday being the biggest and most important day in the history of AEW. People are tossing around $1 billion TV deal, and then we get to Wednesday, and the only thing that anybody is talking about is CM Punk. And I'm just like, I just wanted, I would love to get inside Tony Khan's brain because I know he's a big fan of him and I'm a big fan of CM Punk too. But I'm like, dude, you're already a billionaire. I mean, how many more millions do you think Punk can get you at this point? Because like yesterday and Dynamite was a really good show last night. And even then at the end of it, some people are talking about Hangman's eye patch. Most people are still talking about the drama surrounding CM Punk and will he come in and will he won't come in. And then of course, CM Punk takes to Instagram and now he's starting a fight with Brian Alvarez. Check this out.
One more before I go really quick. The parasocial relationship a lot of fringe wrestling fans have with certain people is really unhealthy. I get the tribalism, like it's fun to root for your team, but picking sides seems a little silly. You don't know me, you don't know anybody else. So, just go touch grass.
To be fair, in a vacuum, he's right.
He is.
In a vacuum. I mean, like,
yeah,
him. It sure sounds like he just doesn't like Brian Alvarez, doesn't it?
Yeah. It sure sounds like he doesn't like Brian Alvarez, but I don't know. So the whole day was ruined by CM Punk, and I don't know that CM Punk even did anything because they took.
Was it ruined? You and I were just doing nothing but laughing throughout the whole day, so our entertainment value was off the charts.
It was great for us because I was highly entertained.
Me too.
But it was, I would say, for AEW, it seemed like the party was ruined for AEW. And some of these hardcore AEW fans who live and die with AEW positivity, these fucking mouth breathers. But anyway, we got BJ Bethel from SE Scoops. BJ Bethel, we're a little heated today. Sorry.
Wow.
How you doing, BJ? So what do you make of this?
Mouth breeders or everyone bout of Chicago.
Yeah. What do you make of this whole thing, BJ? What were your thoughts about AEW yesterday?
I really loved the women's tag match between the Outcasts and Sheeta Britt. I thought that
good.
I thought it was that division and those women in particular have been slowly building and doing some wonderful stuff on TV for months. And it's a real team effort. They put in some new faces like Willow Nightingale, who might be the most charismatic woman on the roster. She got that infectious smile. She's super athletic. She brings power. Jamie Hayter's might be the best women's wrestler in North America right now. Nobody wants to hear me talk about this wonderful stuff going on because just can't keep stepping from his own genitalia, as he likes to use that term. I think he hates Brian Alvarez because Brian Alvarez is taller than him.
And probably better at jiu-jitsu too.
Yeah, well, from what I heard, Punk, I think Alvarez is probably better than him at jiu-jitsu. I got some friends that run those circles in Chicago. To be fair, Punk's just, when he started doing it, he was shattered, beat the crap.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think it was better to have the blow up now than a month or 2 months or 3 months into your show. I find it highly unrealistic from CM Punk or anyone else to believe that Ace still could come back and work in that backstage area after what happened. This is a guy who should have been charged with assault, misdemeanor assault. This is somebody, they didn't charge him with that. He probably would have at least spent the night in jail. He probably, it may not have had jail time. You could say the same about Punk. He just gave, any other person cheap shots at, an executive vice president in front of the legal team head, they're going away in a cop car. I don't understand what world this guy lives in where he thinks that he can get away with these things. And the thing that really upsets me the most is that he is not only, this isn't about him. This is about the 200 or so employees of All Elite Wrestling, the people backstage, the people selling T-shirts, the people working the website, the people that are coaching and producing, the guys that make up the mid card, the lower card, the people that wrestled on, who filled in like Leva Bates did for years, spinning spots, Peter Avalon, people like that who worked backstage and out in front in the ring when they needed them, who busted their ass to get this company going. This is the second time he's put all their jobs in danger. And frankly, I would be very, very happy if he never was in a wrestling ring ever again.
So I think the reason, like you said, well, what is he thinking? Why does he think he can get away with this? And I think it's because he can, and he is, and he will. And until you actually experience some type of harmful consequences, you typically continue to do the same bullshit. And to be honest, if you're CM Punk, who's got the leverage in this relationship right now? Because Collision lives and dies right now with Punk. If they're going to do a brand split and they're going to have Miro and Andrade and Hobbs and these guys be the top stars, it ain't going to work. That's 2 hours of Rampage right there. You got to have CM Punk. This thing only works with CM Punk. And look, and Ace Steele, he's been back for months, apparently. As a matter of fact, I love this about them, by the way, because Impact is kind of like, they should be doing trashy things. And they actually reached out to this guy to try to hire him for a spot on TV. They were going to bring him into Chicago recently. Impact. And I'm like, I love it. Like they actually were going to bring him in, and he had to turn them down because he already had a job with AEW, his AEW gig. And this was like, they were in Chicago like 2 weeks ago. So this was very recent. So Houseman is reporting that Steele has been back for months working remotely. So I want to get both of you guys in on this, and I'll go to you first, BJ. What is your favorite secret employee scandal? Is it Dixie Carter hiring Vince Russo behind the backs of Spike TV, or is it Tony Khan hiring Ace Steele behind the backs of his EVPs? Go ahead, BJ.
I mean, the Ace Steele one's fantastic, but the way Vince Russo accidentally emailed Mike Johnson instead of Mike Day.
Legendary.
Legendary. That is the legendary, colossal secret explosion of all time. The most Vince Russo
the whole company.
Story in the history of the most Dixie Carter, the most Vince Russo.
It got them kicked off of Spike.
Yeah,
because Vince Russo's a dipshit, can't figure out who to email.
It's like Punk. It's like, and it's like you look at Punk and you're thinking Vince Russo did this. And you look at Punk, it's like, is he really that different than Vince Russo at this point? It's like, I mean, is he gonna be calling AEW? Is he gonna be calling TBS up at some point saying, you know what, you need me or you can't have the show running? Because it's basically what he's saying. I mean, I don't think
did that happen already?
I mean, if they're going to do a brand split, Punk needs to be there. But you need to shift some other main eventers over. And I honestly think there's nobody in the main event right now that's willing to work with him. But you can still run 2 shows. You just can't do the brand split. That would be your option. But it blows my mind that Warner had to go and redo all their graphics for the presentation. This is a guy who's going to be announced as part of this brand new primetime TV show on a massive cable network that outdraws many of the network TV channels. And he's mad because his buddy has to work remote.
Now, we heard different information, not necessarily contrary information, but we heard that Punk not being part of the upfront was nothing to do with, was what we heard from a friend. There's nothing to do with the blow up. We actually heard that the plan was Punk's request not to be part of the upfront and to have the reveal on the show. And then the blow up also worked in that. They were actually 2 separate things. That is what we were told by let's be honest, a Punk source.
Yeah, well, what's Nick Houseman?
Nick Houseman's definitely a Punk source. We don't talk to Nick Houseman.
I don't even know that guy. The AEW people I've talked to, it would have to be up to Tony because he knows there's a lot of things he keeps close to the chest. I don't know if Ace Steele has been working for them or not. I do know people I talked to today at AEW said, as far as they knew, he was nowhere around or even working anywhere. Now, does that mean he's been collecting a paycheck? Doesn't mean he hasn't been. Doesn't mean he hasn't been doing, taking money, because this has been a very precarious situation. Tony's kind of kept from firing or releasing anybody. I think at one point people thought, I was told Steele was gone at one point. I don't know if they brought him back or not. This is just such a PR disaster, because they come off one of their best dynamites in a long time. I mean, it's been on a really strong run, especially once it got announced that they're going to have a TV deal, and it's going to be a huge deal. I mean, I don't know if I ever believed the $1 billion mark. Did anyone ever come out and confirm the TV deal money for real?
No.
I heard that yet, because it's been buried under all this stuff. But I mean, I still believe it's going to be 70 to 100 million a year. I haven't heard anything different from that. If it's $1 billion or more total, 1.2 like Keller's reported, it'd be fantastic. I mean, that's almost NHL money. But this is just such a disturbing story in so many ways. It's just, this is a guy who, and he's going to, WWE's kind of washed their hands of him. And to me, if I'm Tony Khan, I just have to say, you can't keep risking your brand and your company and yourself and your relationship with your employees with this guy, because this isn't a guy that, Meltzer made mention of this as well. The locker room has not settled with Punk. They're not happy with him. They have not forgiven him for anything that's related to Brawl Out. Britt Baker recently just shot, without naming him by name, just blitzed him in an interview. So did John Moxley. And in the same interview, he was putting over the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, and and his frustration was, why aren't people talking about Vikingo and Omega's match, and why instead are we talking about this guy who hasn't been on TV in 9 months? If I'm those guys, the Bucks, Omega, they haven't resigned yet.
Yeah,
I'd
and
worry
that was
about him a little bit more than I'd worry about this Chicago guy.
That was my next thing I wanted to bring up to you guys, because Punk aside, right? Punk obviously Punk threw the first punch. The Young Bucks don't seem like the type of guys that are gonna like throw the first punch, but Punk's from Chicago, so JD would throw the first punch. Mike, because I can't fight, I'm just gonna start swinging, hoping that nobody hits me back. But so he throws the first punch, and he is more of an aggressive personality, and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega are more passive aggressive. And now that the fact that they have secretly hired Ace Steele, who took a chunk out of Kenny Omega's arm. Allegedly, but Kenny Omega did use that spot in his match, so it kind of sounds true. And he did have a mark on his arm that looked like teeth marks. But so if you're those guys, and Tony Khan has secretly brought Ace Steele back for months and has been paying him under the table, would you even want to re-sign there? Because it seems like Khan is not really like a trusted agent. He's not being forthcoming with his EVPs.
I would agree that there's a lot of trust issues between Tony Khan and his entire roster. And I also think there's issues between him and the EVPs probably from this. If they didn't know about it, that doesn't mean that. The thing is I have not heard anybody confirm that he's actually been working.
Just Houseman. It's just Houseman.
Well, I think Nick's a very good reporter. I'm sure he had a really good source on that, but I would have verified that. The people that I've talked to, Steele's name hasn't been mentioned in forever. Okay. To me, it would be, the priority is, and this was a big deal to people that I talked to at AEW, even with Warner, was to make sure they sign and keep the elite. And one reason for that was how Cody Rhodes was able to go over, even though he was having issues getting over the fans. You had him getting booed despite being a baby face. You had just issues with storylines with him. He goes to the WWE, he just gets the star welcome. He's the number one baby face in the company for over a year. He main events WrestleMania. He doesn't win the match, and it starts an internet firestorm. Signing the elite, the Young Bucks, Omega, what they stand for, keeping them with that company has to be their top priority. They did fine for 2 years, 3 years without CM Punk. They got an TV deal extension without CM Punk. There was never guarantees that he was coming back. And there's a lot less guarantees with his health. This is a guy coming off 2 serious injuries and within a 3-month span of him wrestling. So I think they really need to relook at their priorities. I think they really need to get some things straight and decide, okay, who are we as a company? Who are the people we're going to have here? And what are we going to do about it? How are we going to handle talents like this that are destructive to our company? I mean, I know Punk's a great name. He's certainly, his ratings draws, his draws as a rating kind of fell on TV wise, which, could be because of the viewership losses overall, but his pay-per-view buys on AEW grow substantially with them.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good that way, but it's like, how much are those buys worth? Are they worth wrecking your whole company over? Is it worth this external soap opera constantly for the last 9 months and the morale hit it takes? And from what I understand, this blow up was considered to be worse than the last one. But there's a lot of things I'm hearing competing information on, and it's like, I heard it only Khan and Punk have only been talking through lawyers. I don't know if that's true or not. I've had other people tell me they haven't been talking through lawyers. They have discussed things together because they would to plan something like this. To me, it's just like, okay, how's this affect the TV deal? How does this affect the other guys in there in your company? And I got to be honest. I mean, Warner was the one that came out and said, CM Punk's not affiliated with Collision. Mm-hmm. That seemed like a pretty definite statement. I think Tony, I think AEW, you really need to take a look at themselves and say, is this guy worth this trouble? And he's not.
JD, go ahead.
No, it's your Kenny JD. Omega's post Dynamite speech last night. Comicbook.com I saw posted. It's the only way I really saw. They posted the transcript of it, and I'll go over that in case you haven't heard. He goes, but it all pales in comparison to something near and dear to my heart. I almost want to do this in the Kenny rhythms, but I won't. And that's catching up with someone that I thought I might never be able to be in the same room with again. So if there's one thing this proves, Hangman, it's that bitter enemies, bitter rivals, and men that once hated each other can sit in a room, sit in a ring, and hash it out for the greater good. So call me old-fashioned if you will, but to me, that sounds like cause for a celebration. You haven't had much to do lately, Brandon, so come in the ring with the goodies, will you? So is he in the kayfabe world, he's talking about Hangman, but Kenny Omega is also Kenny Omega.
Yeah.
Right? He likes to talk through things. That to me reads more like an olive branch from that side than anything we've ever heard. And Kenny, it seems like it's always been like weird about what was said with Kenny. It always seemed like there were always rumors abound that Kenny was just in the wrong place, like didn't really know what was going on because he was not around when things got bad, right?
Yeah.
Kenny was the champ when Punk came in, and then he was gone pretty quick. We had that string of injuries, and then it was still pretty happy-dory. So it seems like he comes back right away, and he's like, "Hey guys, what's going?" Like that Donald Glover meme, right? Walks in with the pizzas and everything's on fire, and he's like,
he just walks into a room and some guy bites him.
It bites him, and it seems like we made jokes on this show, the old show.
He's trying to save the dog,
Kenny and the dog. We're like, "Oh, Kenny's after the saving the dog," but I mean, like, so it seems like. And the Bucks didn't exactly get pissy about it. It did seem to me in that moment that maybe they are all thinking, for the greater good of this company, we will do something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting because Kenny Omega never does anything not with purpose behind it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah,
so I will say this. They could possibly relate to Punk and his loyalty to people. I mean, granted, it's as long as he's been out of the business and some of the bridges he's burnt, that's fewer and fewer people that he's got as close friends that are still in the wrestling business. But I mean, look at how Adam Page stuck up for Colt Cabana, like how, the Young Bucks wanted to take care of people who helped them and were, big parts of their lives and their careers. And maybe they relate to that a little bit. Maybe they're trying to, say this is something that's 9 months going on. I have heard it of the three that the one that would be most pliable to do anything with Punk would have been Omega.
Yeah.
The Bucks, or of course Matt Jackson got punched in the face and Nick got, I can't remember what happened. Oh yeah, he got a trash can thrown at him.
Even in real life,
We're
they throw
still
trash
talking
cans
about
at
this.
each other. Even in
I
real
wonder-
life, they're throwing trash cans at each other. Come on, man.
I always thought those were
Hey,
kayfabe anyway.
what's the saying? The biggest marks are in the locker room, man.
Hey,